Good afternoon, synthesizer nerds. This is Carl at CH Electronics, and I'm going to tell you about my little project. So, a couple of weeks ago, I ordered in one of these very strange Japanese Yamaha Vocaloid keyboards, Keytars to be specific, largely because I thought the ergonomics were quite nice, and it's quite unique. It's a bit of a one-trick pony, I'll be perfectly honest. Well, let me see if I can turn it on. It has a speaker inside it so I can show you. It sounds like a... Well, let me show you how it sounds. It simulates a Japanese lady singing her little heart out. Like this. So I can see that having limited use and probably gradually becoming quite annoying. So I've decided to pimp this thing, and what I'm going to do is use it as a MIDI controller. Well, easy, dead simple you'd say. All you do is plug in a MIDI jack and off you go. Well, problem number one, this keyboard only has a USB MIDI output. Problem number two, the only way to get MIDI from this thing is to use an associated Android app, which is written in Japanese, to enable the MIDI output on this, which to me sounds like a huge design flaw and probably explains why this keyboard only costs £200. So what I've got to do now is hack the living daylights out of this thing. So I've pulled out from my store cupboard one of these things, invented by the good folks at Queen Mary University of London. This is a Bela, and a Bela is like an audio development platform. It's a little bit like a Raspberry Pi. I'll show you one for comparison. I've got one kicking around here somewhere. Here's an old one. It's a little bit similar. But basically this is really souped up for audio. It has 8 audio outputs on the front with the JTAG board that I'm using, and an audio input. So the first step is to get MIDI from this thing, and this is going to require the use of one of these little side boards. This is a Hobbytronics USB host board, and what this does, this acts as a USB class compliant driver and spits out serial from the other side. And I've got this wired up to the Bela now. And when I plug this thing in and run some code from some adventures in the coding I went on a couple of years ago, I can just about get things to spit out. So, good progress, work in progress. And basically I think what I'm going to do is find a way of mounting this, with the audio facing that way, there, and then write some physical modelling software in there so I can get kind of like a wind. I fancy like a wind synthesizer, like a Synth Melodica. So for that end, there's another thing that I bought. And it's here. This is a little TEC Breath and Bite controller. So the plan is to plug this and the Vocaloid into the Bela, combine the signals together, the MIDI, and then write some audio software, and then turn this strange Vocaloid into a souped up, potentially analog synthesizer controller. Wish me luck. So after a little bit of faff, I now have 2 working USB MIDI hosts. This one here connected to the keyboard over here, the Vocaloid, and the other one ready and waiting for a breath controller. And these things are never easy, of course. So on the Bela, in order to enable a serial port, you have to mess around with a text file that's on the root of the hard drive. I don't know how well you can see it. This um.txt file here, and you have to add the serial port number 2 and the serial port number 4. Each one needs its own address. 2, 3, 4 and 5. Doing that, and with some code, which I'll probably put on a GitHub at some point, we now have some strange gobbledygook garbage sysx messages, which tells me that everything's working. And now I think the only thing for it now is to glue this sucker down. La, 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 la. Glue in there. Glue. Glue there. Make sure these wires don't fall out. There we go. This is a classic CH Electronics bodge, but I think it'll work. Just to really keep them secure. Let's just stop that. And then in a moment I'll glue these to the side, like so. What a mess. It should work fine. Now a little trick is that a very, very good way to insulate pins from touching is to cover them in lashings of hot glue, like so. Because you can guarantee that there's no way then for the metal to touch. So that's what we'll do. And then this one I'll fasten to the side, like so. And this one, notice I've Kapton taped. Ta-da! Just for double insulation, double protection. And then this will then be a nice self-contained audio development platform to use with the Keytar. I mean, it ain't pretty, but it'll work. This stuff is strong as anything, you know, for the purposes of holding USB sockets in place. And I'll probably try and put it inside a box or something, a little enclosure. I'm not entirely sure how at this point, but I like the idea of this being a little self-contained audio box. And then we can then MIDI into it from the side. We can program it from there, and then we're good to go. We have the whole world of C++ at our fingertips now. So the big problem is, or the next thing we have to figure out, is how I have to reverse engineer the sysx messages that this keyboard sends. And the only way to do that is to plug the Android phone with the app in one of these, then plug the Vocaloid into the other, and then we have to use some trickery, code trickery, to convince the Vocaloid or the app that it's talking to the Vocaloid. They have to convince that they're talking to each other without knowing that we've secretly got this board in between snooping on the packets. Because if you unplug the cable, the app stops working. It says, oh no, I'm not connected to anything. But we need to reverse engineer some of the sysx messages so we can find out how to automatically send MIDI, the MIDI message to this that says, oi, turn me into a MIDI controller. So that's the next thing, that's the coding situation, and I hope it works, otherwise this will be a waste of time. Let's just all say a little salute as well to dear departed Maplin UK, home once upon a time of shops where you could buy wonderful things like glue guns, tweezers, resistors, capacitors, Arduinos. Real shame that shop doesn't exist, so I keep this thing, I love it, I cherish it,